Alright, I know you guys want to get straight to talking about the book because some crazy stuff has happened, but we're going to talk about history first. So, just so you know, you guys need to be past chapter 2. You guys need to be on chapter 7. Okay, that's on page 320. Again, we got 2 in class, but if you haven't gotten to that point, please get the book and read it before you watch this because there will be spoilers. So we're going to talk about the history of homosexuality from the 80s to now. Even though this book was only written in the last decade, it's taken place in the 80s. And so, as you guys can see with Dante, with how open he's been with his sexuality, that there's going to be some issues. And especially with him being sent to the hospital for this, it's something that needs to be talked about. So we're going to take a little true or false test about issues like this. So according to all religions, it is and always has been wrong or sinful to be homosexual. This is actually false. According to religiousTolerance.org, some wings of religions, like Reformed Judaism and United Church of Christ, accept homosexuality. Other religions, like Buddhism, include no explicit teaching about homosexuality. So just because you're religious doesn't mean you're anti-gay, really, is what this is saying. The first gay character on American television appeared in 1965. This is false. Infrequent discussions of gay issues and inclusion of gay characters began in the 1970s. If you guys remember MASH, okay, you guys don't remember MASH, but there was this one character who was a little more flamboyant than the other men. That's what it means by having infrequent discussions, as in they kind of put someone in there, but they don't talk about it, ever. So in the 1980s, there were some gay characters, and they were mostly minor, like again in MASH. And in the 1990s, a handful of gay characters in major roles appeared. In 1997, when the character played by Ellen DeGeneres on her show Ellen came out as a lesbian, she was the first openly gay lead character in commercial prime television. So she was the first one ever on TV to announce that she was different than others on her sexuality, and that was really big media-wise. The first same-sex couple to be legally wed in the United States were married in 2004. This is true. I don't know if you guys remember this. I do. When gay marriage first became legal in the United States. So if you guys remember that and remember conflicts, I want you guys to think about conversations that you heard others having in 2004. So in 2004, you guys would have been at least 5, right? So, yeah, but I want you guys to think about that, different conversations that you've heard about these things. In 2003, a school tried to ban all school clubs so that it could avoid recognizing a gay-straight alliance. This is true. But the court forced the school to designate all the clubs. So this was something that the school said no to, and then the government's like, you can't. So, yay for the government, right? The American Psychology Association has listed homosexuality as a mental illness. Sadly, this is true. In 1973, the association removed homosexuality from the list. So, great job. Sadly, this happened in many different things. If you know this with Psychological Association, they used to put a lot of things as mental illness that weren't really mental illness. And we won't go into that, but homosexuality used to be one of those. So what does this have to do with the novel? What does it have to do with these two guys over here, right? Well, as we know, Dante just got sent to the hospital after being beaten up for kissing a boy in an alley. And this is pretty big in the novel. This is 1980s, and I know it doesn't, you can't really connect with that, but that was, 30, 40 years ago. And if you look back with television-wise, no one's even announced on television, or they're not even main characters who are homosexual at all. So, socially, it's not accepted. And for the idea for Ari to accept Dante, to accept Dante and still like girls is kind of a phenomenon. And it's like, if you're not gay, then you don't like them, type of a thing. And so this is really big. And so the reason why I want to bring this up is, well, one has a big factor with what the novel is about, outcasts being accepted. And it's just, I wanted you guys to know the history behind that. Also, I want you guys to think about some, some modern events that have happened. So this happened in 2010, so a while ago, but I'm sure you guys have heard many events like this. So this is about a 13-year-old boy named Seth Walsh who told his mom that he was gay, and she was okay with it. But a couple months later, he ended up being taunted and bullied and abused for coming out, essentially. And one day he just couldn't take it, and he ended up committing suicide. So you have all of these events, and you guys can see the URL up there. I highly recommend you reading this, pausing the video to read it. It's about, there's many different types of instances where we've seen where bullying has led to these tragedies, has led to suicide. And this is Seth right here. And it just shows what an impact society can have on people, and especially if they're outcasts. Dante, he didn't want to kill himself, but he was put in the hospital, broke a couple of ribs, bruised all in the face. Like that's serious stuff. If that happened now, whoever beat him up would be in juvie at least. So, this is just a discussion that I want you guys to open up and talk about. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in class, but I wanted to give you guys some background information about the history of homosexuality and how it's being accepted into society little by little, and how even now, this is 2010, and you still hear about people who are bullied and taunted so much by being outsiders. Not just homosexuality, but, especially with cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is huge right now, which isn't a good thing, but it's one of those things where how much can society mold and defeat the individual? So that's what we are going to talk about.